Hey there, this is Unmesh and today we're going to learn how to use adjustment brushes in Lightroom. You will be thrilled to know the amount of awesome things that you can do with adjustment brush in Lightroom. See, adjustment brush allows you to edit things locally. Suppose you want to edit a certain part of your image, not the whole image, adjustment brush is up to the rescue. In this video, we are going to unlock the power of adjustment brushes in Lightroom and you will see how much more amazing your images look when applied the adjustment brushes. Using adjustment brushes in Lightroom separates you from beginners to be a professional. So without any further ado, let's get started. But before we do, make sure you hit the subscribe button to see more videos like this in future if you're interested in Lightroom, Photoshop tips, tricks, tutorials and updates from the creative community. Make sure you hit the red button and let's get started. See, there are two types of adjustments in Lightroom: local adjustments and global adjustments. What is global adjustment? Well, when you edit a picture, suppose you increase the contrast, suppose you decrease the highlights, suppose you increase the shadows. It affects the whole picture, right? It affects the whole picture. Suppose you increase the clarity, suppose you decrease the saturation, whatever you do, it affects the whole picture. But what if you want to affect just the face of your subject? What if you want to affect just the mountains in the Lightroom? What if you want to affect just the sea in your landscape? What do you do then? Then you use local adjustments. Local adjustments is not just limited to adjustment brushes. It also inculcates gradulated filter and radial filter. There are a lot of things that you can do, but the basic idea is local adjustments allows you to adjust only that specific part of your image. So that's the power of local adjustment. Suppose you want more of clouds in the sky, but you want also at the same time you want your water or the reflection to be brighter. How do you do it? You do it through local adjustment. Suppose you have a picture of a subject, suppose you have your own picture and the model, everything is dark, right? And you want to keep it dark, save for the face. What do you do then? Local adjustments. So let's go ahead and dig into local adjustments in some of our projects. As you can see in this example, you might have recollected from the intro of the video, I have some examples to show how I applied adjustment brushes in these example files. So in this image specifically, I used a lot of adjustment brushes. So let me go ahead and click this to show you how many I use. This many. Let me show you the areas of the adjustments used and we'll get into how to use it. So stay tuned. Don't get horrified by the amount of brushes that I've used. It will be simple. Just stay tuned, okay? Let me show you some examples first, then we'll get into the crux. So let's go ahead and see. So if I click on this show selected mask overlay, so it will show me. Let me just turn off the lens correction because that's too heavy on the CPU so that we can easily go through the brushes. So if I click here and if I click in one of the brushes, you can see that an area of the image has turned red, which means that I have applied my effects or my contrast or any of the parameters only to that area. So in this area, I have just increased the tint, made it more magenta-ish, and just that. In this area, let's just fast forward. In this area, I have increased the temperature a little bit. In this area, in the water area, I have increased the clarity a little bit. In the sand area, I have made it a little bit darker. The cityscapes, I have increased the clarity just a little bit and all of that stuff. Now, let me show you the image without the adjustment brushes. So if I just simply go ahead and turn off the adjustment brushes, so this will be the image with all the global adjustments. Now, what are global adjustments? Global adjustments are the adjustments that you apply throughout the image, not specific, throughout the image. Now, let's turn on the adjustment brushes. Look how beautiful it looks. Let me just check it off. It shows you the overlay. Just let me check it off. There you have it with adjustment brushes. This is without, this is with. Look how much amazing your images can become with adjustment brushes. Now, let's move on to another one. So let's look at this one. In this, I have turned off the adjustment brushes. Let's just turn off the adjustment brushes. Now, what I wanted in this image, as you know, in photography, your eyes go to the brightest spot of the image. Now, in this image, this is the brightest spot. I didn't want the eye to go to this place, these this junky place. I didn't want to do that. What I wanted was to get the attention of the viewer towards this girl. Now, how do I do that? By adjustment brushes. Let's turn on the adjustment brush. As you can see, I have made her a little bit brighter. I've increased the clarity just on her. I have enhanced the background just a little bit, but rest of the area seems unaffected. Also, this brighter area, I've made it a little bit darker. So that's the power of adjustment brushes, which gives you the power to locally adjust images and hence attract the attention of the viewer. Now let's move on to another example. So this one, the last example will totally recreate that, okay? Let's look at this example. Let's turn off the brushes. Now, yes. Now, as you can see in this image looks fairly good. But since it's backlit, there's no highlights and shadows in this area. Of course, you can go to Photoshop and do dodging and burning, but you can do that in Lightroom as well. You can make certain parts of the image lighter, certain parts of the image darker to give that kind of shape, right? How do you make an image bump out of the picture? How do you make an image pop out of the picture? By giving it highlights and shadows. And this camel is totally flat. By using brushes, we can give it highlights and shadows. So let's turn on the brushes. As you can see that some parts of the image I've made brighter, some parts darker, and I've also increased the clarity overall just on the camel. So let's move on to another image, and this will be our final, and in this we'll learn how to do it actually. So this is one of my favorite images in which I have worked, and I have turned on the brushes for you. Yes, so this is the brushes turned on. So as you can see how much more light we see on the pigeon. So without the brushes, not much light. With the brushes, a lot more light. So I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to delete every brush and then we'll recreate that. Not every brush, but some brushes. So let's go ahead and zoom in just a little bit. 1:3 would be fine. So this brush, let's turn on the show selected mask and just let's turn off this brush. Now, okay, don't worry. This is going to be a complete beginner. To use the adjustment brush, first all you need to do, you need to select this brush right here. Okay, you might be in the basic panel. All you need to do is select this brush, and suppose you want more color in this area. So what do? So when you click the brush button, so these are all the adjustments that you do locally, that you do in that particular area, right? When you paint anywhere, these settings will be applied to the area in which you paint. Now, from the beginning, I don't want these adjustments, right? I want it totally in the middle. So what do? Double click on the effects and everything comes to the middle. Everything comes to the middle. This controls the size of the brush. This controls the feather, how smooth the brush is. This controls the flow. Flow means how many times would you have to paint to get that darker. So the lesser the flow, the lighter will be the brush. The more the flow, the more opaque will be the brush. So for now, you don't have to worry about it. Okay. So suppose I want to have more colors in this area. So what do? First, go ahead and let's increase the saturation just a little bit. And let's start painting. And as you start painting, you see the saturation increased on that particular area. Now, how to see which areas did I paint? Simple. Just check this show selected mask overlay and it shows you the areas that you have painted. Turn it off to see the effects that you have applied. Right? You have applied saturation. Let's increase saturation just a little bit. So as you can, this is too much, but just a little bit. So as you can see, the effect has just been applied to that area. So let's delete it. So this was before, this is after. Now that we have added color, let's just tuck it in. It's kind of distracting. You can also add clarity. So suppose I want a little bit clarity on a beak, what do? I increase the clarity. Okay. So this is important. So suppose you are editing the clarity, it affects the brush that's selected, right? Suppose I am selecting this brush and I'm editing it, it affects the area that brush has selected. Now, suppose you want to create a new brush. What do? Click on the new button. See, a lot of people make mistakes here. What they do, they just paint and then again they paint. But what's happening is, so suppose you're working on this brush. So this brush increased the saturation. Now, once you're done with it, okay, now I want to increase the clarity. What do? You just simply go ahead, and start painting. But it doesn't happen. Why it doesn't happen? Because it's the same brush. It's the same effect. You need to create a new brush. Alright, so let's go ahead and create a new brush. To create a new brush, you need to click new. It's that simple. And now suppose, it's always a good practice whenever you create a new brush, you double click on the effects to bring everything to the center. Now, let's increase the clarity. We want a little bit clarity on the beak. Okay, so let's go ahead and paint over the beak. So that gives you a little bit clarity. Beautiful. Now, as you can see, this is the way that you give amazing effects to your image. This is the way how stock images are edited. Sometimes you might have searched images in Google Images, and the first results, what are they? They are from shutterstock.com, and those images are so excellent, so brilliant that you want to use them in your project, in your video, or your assignment. Why are they excellent? All of the good photography thing use adjustment brushes, and you need not let it get neglected. Now this might create a little bit problem for you. Say you want to zoom out. How do you zoom out? You cannot just click and zoom out, but you have the brush selected. It's simple. How do you zoom out? There are two ways of doing it. One is the easy way, one is the hard way. Let's go the easy way. Press and hold Shift. Held. Now, see your cursor? Your cursor changes into a hand. Now you just click it and it just zooms out. As simple as that. I've also added a little bit of light. Now let me show you how to add light. First of all, let's turn off the light. Okay, so for that we need to find the light brush. So which brush is controlling the light? Okay, let's look for it. So I remember this one. Okay, so shows you the area. So let's delete this brush. How to delete a brush? Press the delete key. It's that simple. Now once you delete it, let's go ahead and let me show you how to increase the light. So to increase the light, what do we need to do? We need to make it brighter. How do we make it brighter? Increase the exposure. Now let's go ahead and increase the exposure just a tad bit. Okay, and simply start painting. Yeah, you have the light now. You have the light now, and kaboom, we are done. What if you want to add a yellow tint to it? Simple, just increase the temperature and voila, a yellow tint to it. Now you might say, okay, this is too bright. What if I don't want the darker areas to become brighter? Simple, decrease the shadows and not too much, not too much. This starts to look weird, not too much, this much, and we are good to go. Okay, so one more pretty quick tip. So suppose you have applied the adjustment brush and you think it's too much. Right? You think the effect that you have applied is too much. Suppose, let me go ahead and let me show you an example. Suppose you have applied an adjustment brush right here. Okay, let me go ahead and let me create a new brush. I have applied an adjustment brush right here, and I have increased the contrast a little bit. I have increased the saturation a little bit, a clarity a little bit, and maybe the shadows a little bit. Now, suppose if I think that's too much, that's actually too much. Suppose you think it's too much. There are two things that you can do. One by one, take the sliders a little bit towards the center. That will reduce the effect. Or let's do the smart technique. All you can do is, you see a tiny arrow here? A tiny arrow, just a little bit tiny ignored arrow. All you have to do, click this arrow. You see the amount slider. And when you take the slider to the left, the whole effect of the brush goes down. The whole effect of the brush reduces. Let me show you how. See, things have gone towards the center. It's that simple. So whenever you want to decrease the effect of brush as a whole, click the little arrow, decrease the amount or increase the amount the way you like it, and you're good to go. So that's all for this video, and I hope you use adjustment brushes in your images, and trust me, that will make your images look so much more better and amazing than the rest, and that will separate you as a photo editor. If you like the video, like it. If you dislike the video, dislike it. But make sure, don't be selfish about it. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Till then, stay tuned and make sure that you keep creating.